We're going to be talking about what it means to not be good enough. A lot of the things that I talk to you guys about, a lot of the things that we go over and you listen to me repeat over and over again is that you are good enough, that you have everything it takes inside of you. But we have to start identifying the areas in our lives where we actually have to make improvements and maybe we are not good enough. We're going to be talking about biases. We're going to be talking about what we can do to overcome them and what we can do to change the perspective of people, because we do have to change the perspective of people. Okay, we do have to work actively on creating the best perspective that we can for people to have of us. And why does that matter? You might be like, well, you know what? I don't care about what people think about me. Okay, but like, what about when you try to get promoted at work? What about when you're trying to influence the teacher in your class to give you another chance to retake the test because maybe you ran out of time and you didn't plan accordingly? What about when your little league football coach to your kids team doesn't want to put your son on the starting line and you have to be able to influence him to give him a chance to do so, because how else is he going to improve, right? We have to understand that there are biases that people have and they are real and they will always be real. And I'm not here to tell you whether they're right or wrong. It's just that biases come from people having different types of experiences. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that today. We're going to explain what is it that we can do to change the dynamic in our favor. What does it mean when you're not good enough? What does it mean when you tell yourself like, oh, well, the reason why I got cut from my job is because, I'm a veteran, or the reason why I didn't get that job opportunity is because I'm a woman. Or you tell yourself that, well, the reason I can never get ahead in life is because I'm black. Or you tell yourself that the reason why people don't like me is because I served overseas and now everybody judges me. There are biases that exist, 1,000% true. But we have to be brutally honest and true about other people's biases and understand where they come from. Because when we start to understand the biases, we start to understand how people think, and then we are given the opportunity to actually start doing something different, to change not just the bias, but to change the perspective and the lens that people see you through. Because we actually do want to do that, because we want people to see us through a better lens. Now, in the past, have you ever felt doubt? Have you ever been doubted because of your age, your gender, or how you look, or the fact that you are a veteran? It happens. It happens a lot. But the thing is, how much power do we give it? We can either confirm that the bias is true and we can give into it and be the victim of it, or we can do something to change the perspective of what people see us as. Biases are real, but what can we do about them? Sometimes we do need to ask ourselves, what if we're just not good enough yet? What if it has nothing to do with the fact that you are a man, or that you are a woman, or that you are a veteran, or that you are black or white or Latino? Or what if it has something to do with the fact that you just don't have the experience yet? Or maybe you're too young in the industry that you're in. What if we're just not good enough yet? Because when we start to lean back on that bias, when we start to say, well, the reason why I didn't get this opportunity or this job or this X, Y, or Z is because of this. You're saying it's out of your control. Or is it in your control? Is it just that you don't have the experience that they need you to have yet? Is it just that you maybe have an attitude problem that you haven't addressed? Is it just that maybe you are a little too young right now? Maybe you don't have the experience that they want you to have. What is it that we can do about that? Because there actually is something we can do about that. Now, here are some real stories with real lessons attached to them. A woman quits her job, blaming her boss for not respecting her as a woman. And that's why she didn't get promoted, and that's why she can't get ahead in life, and that is why she can't do what she wants to do, and life is unfair for her. But what if she just wasn't good enough? A young entrepreneur struggled to get clients, blaming that his age and that he is too young and that nobody takes him seriously. But what if his pitch just wasn't compelling enough? See, the victim mentality holds people back more than it helps them. There is no power in telling yourself that I am a victim in this situation. There's no victim advocate in life. No one is going to come and be like, oh, well, let me coddle you and let me make sure that things are fair for you, because life is not fair. And we know this. But we do have to actually confront this head on. And when I say confront, I don't mean confrontation. I mean we have to face it head on and then realize that we can do something about this. There is a reality of bias. Biases will exist and will always be there for as long as we are around on this planet. People are judged based on their experiences. People will judge others based on what they experience. We can't change that, but we can change how we respond. We can change the fact that maybe, just maybe, our boss had a bad interaction with someone and he's putting that on us. We can confirm the bias, or we can tell ourselves that, what can I do to change his perspective? Because if there are people who think that, well, you're a veteran, so therefore you have PTSD, or you're a veteran, therefore you're not good with crowds, or you're a veteran, therefore we can't put you in a managerial position because everyone is going to be scared of you. Okay, what can we do about that? We have to take action against that bias. The biases will exist. We can't change them, but we actually can improve ourselves individually. A young entrepreneur faced age bias, so he actually worked twice as hard to prove himself. He was able to get the position that he wanted, and then he worked just as hard because the table and the deck and everything is stacked against him. Because he's young, he doesn't have the experience, so he needs to work twice as hard because he is starting in the negatives. People are going to look at someone like him and say, you don't have the experience. But guess what? If he is willing to buckle down and work twice as hard than everybody else in the room, people will notice that. People will start to say, okay, he may be young, but look at him. He has freaking just amazing tenacity. Personal excellence is the best type of revenge. Personal excellence can overcome bias. When you personally tell yourself that you are going to seek excellence in what you do, not perfection, excellence, which is a level of quality that you're willing to get to. And when people tell you that, well, I just don't think that you can do this, or, you know what, I don't know if you're right for this position, or, you know what, maybe later on, but right now, I'm not sure. Use that freaking doubt as fuel. Use that doubt and bias as motivation to achieve more, because it actually means a lot more when you can do that. So when there is a situation that happens to you and you feel like you have been unjustly criticized, categorized, judged, you're in the negatives, right? So imagine how much more powerful your comeback can be if you work harder, smarter, better, more diligently, with the right attitude, and you address your shortcomings than everybody else's. You have to turn that negative energy into a drive to succeed. When situations happen and when people put you in a box and when they tell you, like, well, we just don't know, freaking show them. Like, show them. And to be honest, you will make a larger impact on them than someone that is just given a chance just because they think that they deserve it. Because the person that thinks they deserve stuff and they just get it and they don't realize just how fortunate they are and how much work they had to put into it, they're not going to work as hard. They're not going to be able to really achieve as much, to be honest with you. And nothing is black and white. Nothing is just this or that. There's always gray areas, right? But the thing is, like, if you are being categorized and people are believing that you can't do this because of this, that, or whatever, you're too small, you're too short, you don't have the experience, you maybe are too young to understand what older people are trying to do in this company. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you're too old. All of these things and all of these reasons, they may very well be true. If someone says that they don't want to hire you, or they don't want to work with you, or they don't want to be in a relationship with you, or they don't want to be friends with you, because you seem to be an asshole a little bit more than most, you have a bit of an ego, you can play the victim card. You'd be like, well, nobody understands me, and why does this, no one ever gives me a chance, or you can do something about it. The bias is going to exist no matter what. But what can we actually control about it? Can we actually start to develop a little bit more maturity? Can we understand that, okay, if people are willing to tell us that maybe we have an attitude problem, guess what? Maybe there is an attitude problem. Because complaining about it and telling yourself and other people, like, well, life is just unfair, it doesn't help you. It doesn't help anyone. Improving yourself is what actually does help you. Be the exception, not the rule. If everybody always expects people that are this or that or whatever to not tip well at the restaurant, but you go out of your way to be a good tipper, or if everyone always expects people that are veterans to not really be friendly, and you go out of your way to say hi to everybody and have a smile on your face and be extra charismatic, it's not about kissing ass. It's not about trying to manipulate people. It's about understanding that you putting the effort in is actually going to feel really nice because you're going to start to see results and people are going to pay attention to that because they're going to be like, oh, wow, that's not typically what we see from a veteran. Or, oh, wow, like you actually do understand the culture that we're trying to build here in this business, even though you're a little bit younger. Wow. Or, oh, okay, you're a woman, but like you really like are doing amazing stuff here and it has nothing to do with your gender. You actually are like showing up and understanding all the materials. So like if we think that we're being judged because of our gender, maybe it's true. The color of our skin, our past, our profession, all those things might very well be true. I've been judged for being a police officer, but I actually do make the effort to show people that there is more to me than just that, as well as being a veteran. And the reason why I do that is because I'm not going to just give into the idea that, oh, well, the world is unfair and people are going to judge me and screw them and they can all go to hell. Like, no. I'm willing to put myself out there a little bit more, be extra charismatic, give a little bit more to possibly create some amazing opportunities for myself. Because why not? Be the exception, not the rule. Be willing to change somebody's mind. And you know what? If they don't change their mind, that's okay. Somebody else will be able to change their mind. Because you have opportunities that are out there in the world, but when you are faced with someone saying something about you, maybe they tell you that you're not good enough. Maybe it's true. And maybe there is something to the bias that they have for you, but maybe it's not. Either way, you have to decide what you're going to do about it. So if it's a bias, you can decide I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to make sure that people see me differently because I'm willing to actually change how people see me because I don't want to fall into that category. Or if it's you telling yourself that there's a bias, but it's just that you don't have the experience, guess what? Get the experience. If it's a bias because you have an attitude problem, guess what? Fix your attitude problem. Real examples of bias and growth. So a kid with a marketing agency. A young entrepreneur started a marketing agency and struggled to get clients. He blamed it on being too young, but in reality, his pitch and services needed improvement. What did he do? He worked harder. He improved his skills and eventually started landing clients. Why? Because he realized that just because he's young, it doesn't mean that he can't learn. However, because he is young, people will feel like he can't learn. People will feel like he's not ready. So he needs to work twice as hard to overcome the bias of people believing that he is not experienced enough and also overcome the reality of maybe he is not experienced enough. A restaurant in the wrong part of town. An individual opens up a restaurant and it's in a less desirable part of town and he blames the location on the lack of customers. And well, nobody wants to come here because you know what? It's in a bad part of town. However, instead of accepting defeat, he focused on making the best food and providing excellent service. We all know that one restaurant that we're all willing to drive to that maybe isn't in the best part of town. Why? Because they make the best freaking tacos. And over time, word spreads and people will start coming to that restaurant despite the location. Because he was willing to work harder and he understood that he was fighting an uphill battle. But the uphill battles are honestly the best battles to fight because it feels that much better when you're victorious. We have to understand that the hard truth of what we have to do either way, whether there is bias or whether we are just not good enough or we have an attitude problem or we are this or that. The answer to both is self-improvement. Sometimes it's not just the bias. Sometimes we do have to self-improve. Sometimes we need more experience. Sometimes we need to become better. Sometimes we need to change something about ourselves. It's not that people don't like you because you are this or that. People just might not like you because you're not a likable person right now. Guess what? You can do something about it. We have to focus on becoming better, not on blaming external factors or saying that it's because of this or that. And again, maybe it is. Guess what? You can change the perspective by working twice as hard to overcome that bias, that adversity. Outwork it. Outwork the bias. Increase your efforts tenfold and outwork all of your competition. More attempts lead to more opportunities and success. Be undeniably good at what you do so no one can come and tell you anything. You should feel that your work speaks for itself and no one can come and tell you anything. Let your actions speak louder than any bias. Because people will see you and they will see that you are putting in the work. And therefore, they can't even say anything about the bias because now the bias is not true. And in fact, you change the bias to where they see you as the exception. Oh, wow. Typically, we don't really hire too many veterans because, they come here and they have an attitude problem. And 4 or 5 months in, they end up leaving or quitting. And like you came in here and like we want to make you manager because you are a people person. And like, how can we find more veterans like you? We have to make sure that we're asking ourselves the key questions to actually drive improvement in ourselves. Focus on what you can control, your skills, your efforts, your mindset. You have to have a winning mindset. If you have the victim mindset, if you tell yourself that I can't do this or it's not fair, your mindset is going to destroy your efforts. And if you have no efforts, your skills will not improve. It works both ways. But if you work on it and you improve your skills, your efforts will become better and better. And you will actually see that people around you are enjoying seeing you do the work and your mindset improves. What would it take for me to get on the team? Okay, fine. You're saying that I'm not experienced enough or I don't have the knowledge that you think I need to have or this or that. Then what would it take for me to get on the team? What do I have to do to get this opportunity? What would it take for me to be the manager, director, or get a raise? What would it take for me to succeed despite the bias? And that's the coolest part. You should always be looking for anything in life that you can do despite something else. You come out on top despite all the things that have happened to you in your life. You come out on top and you succeed and you get the promotion despite the fact that you felt initially that you'd never have a chance. What would it take? Because you can either succumb to the victim mentality and tell yourself that, well, it's just never going to happen for me. This is unfair, or I didn't get that job because they like him better. Okay, why do they like him better? Is there truth to it? Does he have a more charismatic attitude? Is he willing to take shifts or volunteers to take out the trash? Because stuff like that might seem silly to you, but like people notice that stuff, right? And instead of you being bitter or angry about like, well, someone else got the promotion over me, pay attention. What did that person do that you didn't? What can you do better to make sure that when this opportunity comes knocking again, because it will, you are positioned in a place to be the freaking common sense decision? Because you have positioned yourself in ways that people are looking at you and just waiting to get you into a better position. What would it take? What do you have to do? Do you have to get another certification? Do you have to work a little bit harder but smarter at the same time? Do you have to make sure that instead of you not talking to anybody in the office, you start to actually develop some friendships and connections and relationships and you learn to network? What would it take for you to overcome whatever that bias is? If people have a bias and they think that, well, people of your skin color or your race or your ethnicity or your age can't do this or that. Guess what? Show them. Show them undeniably that you can, because that's actually going to impress them a lot more. We're not here to handle the bias or change it in the world. We can't. We can't. We're here because we can change the perception, the perspective of someone that might be able to put us in a better position. And then you can start working on that bias from the inside. What are some action steps that we can take right now, today? Ask yourself, where are you letting bias and the victim mentality hold you back? Either or. In what areas of your life right now are you letting bias hold you back? Or the victim mentality? Truly, truly ask yourself that and write it down. And be honest with yourself. What is it going to take to overcome others' biases? If people have a bias against you, you actually can do something about it. You can try a little bit harder. You can grease the wheels. You can attract more bees with honey than with shit. You can be willing to be a little bit extra charismatic. You're not sacrificing yourself. You are actually creating an opportunity for yourself. And you have to see it that way. You are creating the best life for yourself. Because if you're not willing to, and you just tell yourself, oh, well, this is life and I can never get ahead. And you know what? It's messed up because they're judgmental or they're racists or you know what? They just don't like people like me or they don't like veterans. Like, okay. And then what? What then? Is that life for you? Is that it? Like, what are you going to do about it? Because if you're telling yourself that that's true, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Because if the answer is nothing, then, well, that's just no way to live, right? But if you are going to work a little bit harder to change the perspective, to start showing maybe that person, that boss, that relationship, that friend, whoever, that you deserve and you can earn the opportunity by being different than what they expect from you, you are going to stand out for the right reasons. And on the flip side, if you think that there's a bias, but there's no confirmation of it, and even if it's not true, but you keep telling yourself like, well, they just don't like me. Maybe it's just because you're not good enough yet. Maybe it's just because you have an attitude. Maybe it's because you have an ego. Maybe it's because you expect people to give you the position and hire you just because you're a veteran. Maybe you need more experience. Maybe you need to build it up. Maybe you have to start from the bottom and work your way up in a much faster way than most, but you have to start somewhere. Life isn't handed to you, and you know this. You've dealt through harder stuff before. You've been through harder things before. You can come out on top. You just have to be willing to put the work in. Put the work in. Put the work in. And be willing to destroy the bias. Be willing to actually show people, whether they are judging you or not, that you can accomplish a lot more. And the control, the power, the ownership, it's all on you. Thank you for your time.